It is no secret that David Tennant is the Doctor.
The definite article, you might say.
Okay, for almost anyone in the general public, as well as many fans. With his return to the show next month, I thought, what a perfect time to reveal what my top 10 stories of his tenure actually were. Rather than ranking all of his episodes or just rattling off the great ones, I was like, why not give people the best of both worlds and just give you a top 10? Before we get started, I do want to preface by saying this is just my opinion. Everyone has their own opinions, and that's absolutely fine, and it kind of makes these videos even more enjoyable. But I do hope you enjoy seeing my takes nonetheless. I believe that is enough time wasted, so let's get into my top 10 episodes of the David Tennant era. Starting off strong, we have The Planet of the Dead in number 10. I think this is the first episode that was in HD. It kind of seemed like they wanted it to be visually nice because all of the visuals are just amazing and it just looks so nice. The episode has a great sense of mystery to it as well. I like the idea of the planet being destroyed by these like indestructible creatures that eat planets. It's almost like an early edition, lower scale version of the Flux from the last season. Christina's also a really good companion, and they played off each other so well in this episode that when it came to the end, I was upset that she wasn't staying for longer. This episode has some of the best side characters too. They felt so human and real, and there was something great about watching an episode where the Doctor has to deal with this situation with people like that, just ordinary people. The intro to this episode is also one of the best in the show, and probably one of the best companion Doctor introductions. I just love them showing his shoes and then his coat, and we all know it's the Doctor, but it's just got that really like secretive sort of reveal to it. I love it. Now next is Smith and Jones at number 9, and my reason behind this are the Jadoon are just amazing. Now in number 8 we have, I'm just messing, mind. I mean, they are really cool, but in all seriousness, I love the introduction that the 10th Doctor and Martha have. The time travel with like the wibbly wobbliness is such a great way of introducing them. It's very similar to that of River and the Doctor, where they kind of meet out of time, except this is on a very small scale. The villain is just beyond dumb, but I kind of see it as like a satire way. Like, I think it's meant to be dumb, and I kind of enjoy it more because of that. The way they beat her as well is just awesome. The science might not be perfect, but the logic is, and it works for me. Having Martha as well be thrown straight into a situation like this is really great. You get to see her character and her personality from the get-go, really. You can definitely see why the Doctor would travel with Martha, and I don't really get that with every companion introduction. Now this is definitely not a surprise for anyone. In number 8 we have the Shakespeare Code. To start off with, I love the atmosphere in this episode. I'm not usually a fan of historicals. I'm not into the whole like magic and things that can't be explained in sci-fi, which almost every single historical has to some extent, but for some reason I just like this one. Seeing Martha and the 10th Doctor just having fun this episode is fun for me, and it just makes me happy watching it. We also do have mentions of Rose, and whilst it's still at the forefront of some scenes, it doesn't quite annoy me because it's not overdone yet, and I kind of like him reflecting on her. Like, he's not just got over her instantly. I also think it keeps their relationship from being romantical like Rose and Ten were set up to be. Although she still tries pursuing it, it kind of gets that guard up straight away, and you know where they're going to end up. The character of Shakespeare was also nothing like I was expecting going into this, but it only makes the episode better because of it. My number 7 is Turn Left. Any form of messing around with time travel is instantly an episode I love, so throwing in an alternate reality with that, I obviously am gonna love this episode. This episode, showing all the events the Doctor helped prevent it, just shows how important he truly is to the human race. Although this episode takes a lot of these situations to the extreme, it does give you an idea of what would happen if the Doctor wasn't there, and it's an interesting topic. For me, it's one of Wilf's standout episodes. I think most people that like Wilf kind of got that from his final appearance in The End of Time. I think it shouldn't be, because this is truly where he shines for me. I know a lot of people hate Rose's return in this as well, and the whole season 4 in general. I quite like it here, and her personality is so different to before that it almost feels like a different character. Rose definitely feels like the Doctor in this, very similar to how Clara ended up going before she died. It's almost seeing what Clara could have actually became. Now my number 6 is Midnight. Now this episode is just unique, but in a good way. To be honest, I just find it really fascinating how they were able to keep the suspense and excitement all whilst being in one room the whole episode. It has some really memorable side characters too, each with very realistic personality, which actually enhances the experience of this episode as you see all their reactions to the events taking place. It kind of gives more conflict than necessary in this episode, but it's all out of fear, and you can kind of understand where everyone's coming from even if you don't agree. It still doesn't make sense to me why the villain was doing what it was doing, why it was copying the Doctor's words, how it was copying the Doctor's words, but it was very terrifying to watch from the Doctor's perspective. Seeing him made powerless from the use of his words is his strongest weapon, to quote the Time Lords. It's quite hard to watch happen, and it's only made better because of Tennant's acting. He sells it so well. It's kind of incredible, really. With such a basic concept, so much fear is induced. Next up is The Walters in Mars in 5th place. Everyone knows this episode is great. The villain concept is just cool from the get-go. Seeing the Doctor just watch the fixed event because he can't do anything about it, again, a great concept. They also make the characters really likable, even when you know how horrible their fate is, so you have to just sit there and watch, knowing they're about to die this very tragic death. It's honestly just all round amazing. Obviously, David Tennant's acting, what am I going to say that isn't already said by any single person online about this episode? It's amazing. The ending as well is both shocking and superb. You think with all the positives I said about this episode, it would be number 1 on my list, and you know, it easily could be. These top 5 are probably fairly interchangeable. I just think I'd rather watch one of these others. Now, The Girl in the Fireplace takes my number 4 spot. And as someone, like I said previously, who loves time travel, this is one of the best uses of time travel in the Russell T Davies era for me. It also has the 10th Doctor being really funny almost throughout the whole episode. Even though a lot of the jokes are aimed at Mickey, it is still quite funny. Madame de Pompadour in this is a great side character, and her and Tennant play off each other so well and have great chemistry. Whilst I couldn't see her staying on as a companion because of the historical figure and type of character she is, they almost felt more like companion and Doctor than Rose and the Doctor at sometimes. It just makes for a really fun time when watching the episode, and you actually believe their relationship because of that, making their connection stronger, thus making the ending sadder. I love some of the ideas in this episode, like the Doctor trying to access her memory and her seeing his. It just builds that bond even more and creates some emotional scenes. The Clockwork People are also a really cool villain. I mean, they're very powerful and get taken down so easily in the end, but they serve the purpose of the episode, and they're not really the focus. They're just there so that Mickey and Rose aren't just sat there doing nothing for 45 minutes. Now, before I reveal the top 3 episodes, if you are enjoying the video, please consider liking down below. It helps the channel grow, and it can then reach more Whovians. If you would like to see more ranking videos and Doctor Who videos in general, then also consider hitting that subscribe button so you do not miss out on any future content I make. With the 60th coming around, I'm sure I'll be making many more videos, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned. With that said, let's get straight back into the ranking. This is almost definitely going to be a shock to people. Blink is my number 3. I mean, it's Blink. It had to be this high. If it wasn't top 5, even top 3 at least, you'd probably be writing every negative comment possible. But it is truly good, so it deserves to be this high. It definitely used to be my number 1, as anything related to time travel is my cup of tea. But it definitely uses rewatch value every single time for me. The first time I watched it, you had the scary, mysterious feeling with the Weeping Angels, not knowing what they are and what they can do. You also had the intrigue of how everything was connected, from the 17 DVDs to the police box in the middle of nowhere to how they're sending people back in time. It's all super interesting when you don't know it, because the whole episode's premise is the confusion and the mystery. It just gets rid of that wow factor because I know everything that's happening. I would still easily recommend this to anyone who's seen the show or not seen the show. It's phenomenal. It's still probably that high for me. It's just the first experience of this episode is unbeatable and nothing tops it. But as someone who loves the show so much, when I want to rewatch things, I want to get as much enjoyment out of that as possible. So that is why in second place we have Human Nature and The Family of Blood. Most people that have seen the show know this is a great story. The villains in this are great. I mean, specifically Baines. That guy knows how to play a fake human a little too perfectly. He's both hilarious and terrifying, and sometimes I don't know which one he's meant to be at a given time. Some people don't like the ending where he basically tortures them for all eternity, but I love the fact that he hid himself from them to save them from himself. This episode is the first major time as well that we see the Doctor have perfect faith in Martha. She's literally placed in a period of time where her class, race, and gender all work against her, and she still manages to come out on top. To me, this is perfect setup for her eventual saving of the whole entire world in the final part of season 3. What's even more incredible for me is how David Tennant doesn't even feel like the Doctor one single bit. I also find it kind of poetic how a season after the Doctor was saying how he can't live a normal life, he finally gets to, yet not as himself, as a different person who will eventually be completely erased. Obviously, I'm giving my opinions in a shorthand here, and there is so much more I could say, but generally this is just a perfect 2-parter. Now, my favorite episode of the entire David Tennant era has to be The Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead. And this is one of the only episodes that actually kind of scared me a little bit. I just really hate the idea of the talking corpses in the spacesuits. It's really off-putting and unsettling, and I hate them just slowly walking repeating the same phrase over and over again. And the worst part is it's not even a scary phrase, it's just a standard phrase. That actually makes it worse. Also, can we agree this has one of the best monster concepts in the whole show? The Vashta Narada. I honestly think it's on the level of the Weeping Angels and the Silence in terms of creativity and how good it can be used in an episode. At a show that's aimed for, say, family viewing and maybe even younger children, a villain that plays off of one of the biggest fears of younger children, the dark, is also really terrifying, and I can't imagine watching this as a kid, really. When you combine this with the Walking Dead corpse people repeating the same phrase over and over and over again, it just keeps the suspense going for almost the whole 1 hour 30-minute runtime, and it keeps you on the edge the whole way through. It's a great experience, really. Whether you like River's song as a character or not, the introduction here is phenomenal, and what they do with the character and how they use the character is really great, and I'm kind of shocked they didn't do this sooner, with the show being like 30 years old at this time. You know, they do a great job with setting up this character when we don't even know her, yet her death is super emotional. This pair of episodes too are some of the best for Donna. The trauma she goes through when in this fake hard drive world is honestly hard to watch. Just hearing her children talk about them not existing when she's not there, and then them just disappearing even when she is, and her screaming, it gives you chills every single time, and Catherine Tate does so well with it. It is a two-parter full of fear, excitement, suspense, and emotion, and it has zero boring moments, even after all these times I've rewatched it. It's great every time. If I were to recommend a single episode from this list, or the Tennant era in general, this would be my number one. I think it has the best showcase of everything the show has to offer, really. Unfortunately, that is all I have for you today, but hopefully you enjoyed hearing my opinions. Now, I would love to know yours, so make sure to comment down below and maybe even write out your top 10 lists and maybe get some discussions going down below. Either way, thank you for watching.